You're working just the way you always have, maybe even better. You're more experienced, handling tasks with ease. Then it starts. Your opinion's no longer relevant. You're always overqualified. Suddenly, you're unemployable. This isn't part of aging, it's ageism. Everyone deserves to age without limits. Let's make it a reality. Ageism. Notice it, challenge it, change it. Search Age Without Limits.
This week I'm talking to Jane Ashley, who shares her rebellious spirit and adventurous life into her 60s. She lost her husband and sister at a very young age, which fueled her desire to embrace every moment of getting older. And her story for me is a testament to resilience. But before we hear from her, please follow the podcast, rate it, and you can even share it with your friends. Welcome to Retirement Rebel Life After 60. I'm your host, Siobhan Daniels. Join me on a journey to meet inspiring rebels who've redefined retirement. Together, we'll explore new passions, triumphs over challenges, and discover the vibrant possibilities of life after 60. This is about living boldly, not just aging. So, are you ready to rebel? Last week, I spoke to Tracy Aycock, who's helping thousands of women to embrace age. She formed the Wellbeing Wisdom Club after retiring early and feeling that she needed a sense of purpose in her life. She encourages women to love you for you and to just enjoy life, which is what we're showcasing here on the Retirement Rebel Life After 60 podcast. Women who enjoy life and don't let age self-limit them or actually define them. If you missed it, please check it out on any podcast platform. This morning on Retirement Rebel, my guest is Jane Ashley, and I'm thrilled to bits to have her on because she is exactly the type of woman that inspired me to create this podcast, to show that there are lots of us out there in our 60s, 70s and 80s doing just incredible things, running marathons, jumping out of planes, just being general rebels. So welcome, Jane. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on.
Thank you for asking me.
Now, one of the things that caught my attention when I was reading your biog was when you said that you think you started to rebel when you were doing your O-levels. And I thought, yep, as soon as I saw the word rebel, I thought she's in my gang. I want her in my gang of retirement rebels. So just tell me a little bit about your childhood and then when you felt that you were being a rebel at school.
Yes, I was born in South London, eldest child of three of us. And we grew up, we had a nice, happy childhood. 11, I passed my 11 plus exam and kind of fortunate, but I didn't feel particularly fortunate at the time to get a place in a private all-girls school. But obviously my mum and dad thought that was the best education for me. So I went. I was fairly happy there. I had made a few friends. I always felt, though, that there was a little bit of a difference between me and most of the other girls who had the privileges of money and background. And after being kind of labelled intelligent at 11, your expectations in terms of O-levels was very high. I did reasonably well, not as well as I probably could have done. I decided to stay on and do A-levels and really flunked them, really. I think I came away with one A-level that was a D grade. Again, the expectations were 3 A's and you go to Cambridge type thing, you know.
How did that make you feel about yourself at that time?
I didn't think I was kind of worthy of things. I definitely thought there's more to life than academia.
That's when you said you felt you like a rebel. What did you mean by that?
Yeah. I think just because my life wasn't all kind of sitting studying in the library and getting your homework in on time and things. I at that time I made friends out of school and I started having quite an active social life, including meeting boys. And
oh, that's when the trouble starts.
It's a very closed off life, going to an all girls school sort of thing.
What influence do you think it had on you, or impact did it have on you going to an all girls school? I went to an all girls convent school, and I do think, looking back, it did affect me in making me a little bit more rebellious, I think. And some of my friends as well, as we've grown up, I think we all laugh about the fact that we went to the girls' convent school and we've turned out the way we've turned out.
Yes, yeah. There was a lot of expectation about how your life would pan out from that. I mean, even now, somebody sent me the other day the list of leavers from the year that I left. And the thing that was next to them was basically the university where they went. So the expectation was every girl would go to university there. There were no other options. There were other options. There were people doing some other things. Secretarial college was another possibility, but that was really for the ones that really had only got a couple of O levels.
So what happened to you? You got the 1 A level. What did you do?
Yeah, well, I did. I still did want to go to uni because I'd gone and visited a friend who was doing psychology up at Aston University. And psychology wasn't an option at A level, but I really loved human behaviour. I'm really interested in people. So I decided to go back to a local community college. And that year just blew me away, really. I met so many people from different cultures. There was just such a right mix. But it wasn't just that. It was also, I had a Robin Williams type of teacher doing English, and she was inspirational. And I think my English went up from a failure up to a B grade within 12 months.
It's incredible what good teachers can do.
Absolutely. It just really opened my eyes to a lot of things.
It seems like it was the right environment for you.
It was.
And then you headed up north.
Yes, to Manchester to do psychology. My mum and dad were they were against me going to uni, but they were unsure, I think, because there had been few people in my family that had gone to university. I think my cousin Andrew was the only person who'd gone to university, so they didn't have that. And in fact, I wasn't just going to a university, I was going to Manchester, which was 300-400 miles away, I came to Manchester, absolutely loved the city, felt really at home and really had a wonderful time doing my degree.
Did your sense of adventure thrive when you were at university? Did you get up to anything there?
Yes.
Oh, you say that very...
So went to the Freshers' Fair like most new uni students do. And there was a stand for the caving club. And I thought, caving. And didn't really know what it was about, but assumed it was going underground into caves. I'd had some sort of moderate claustrophobic experiences while I'd been at school. I didn't realise how claustrophobic you could feel in a cave and going down a tunnel and going underwater completely and not knowing where you're going to come out and things like that. But I tell you what, it cued it.
I bet it did.
Yeah, Sundays were spent going out with the caving club. I became quite politically involved with the Labour students, and that kind of was something that I did after uni as well for a little bit. I also, I think it was my second year there, some friends of mine said, we're going to do a sponsored parachute jump. Do you fancy joining us? So I'm like, oh gosh, okay then. It was a whole weekend actually, because you were jumping on your own. It wasn't one of these tandem skydive ones.
Oh my goodness. I've done a tandem one in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And that was scary enough. I couldn't.
Yes.
The reason I did that was I thought, do you know what? If I do it on my own, I'll end up having a heart attack and won't be able to pull my parachute. So I got myself strapped to a gorgeous fella, which was a Brucey bonus, and jumped out of a plane at 13,000 feet. But my hat's off to you doing it on your own.
I don't think I really knew before I signed up for it that it was going to be on me. I assumed it probably would be with somebody, but it was the other type that's called a static line. And basically you have a line attached to you and your parachute that's attached to the plane. So then when you go out, you have to stand on the wing as well. That's the other thing. You had to stand on the wing of the plane and then jump backwards.
No.
So you don't just tumble out of the plane.
I don't think my legs would let me walk onto the wing.
I froze on the wing. So you're standing on the wing of a plane that's going at 70, 80 miles an hour, 2,000 foot up in the sky. I couldn't jump. I just froze. The instructor inside put his hand out and I thought he's pulling me back in. I don't have to do this. Oh no, just a big shove then. And as you fall, this line pulls open your parachute. So you don't have to open your parachute. It pulls open your parachute.
I didn't know that.
But because I'd spent so long stood on this wing, not jumping, I landed in the wrong field completely. I was in some farmer's vegetable patch and had to climb over with all my parachute over a barbed wire fence to get back. It wasn't the most enjoyable of experiences. I think there was probably about a minute where I opened my eyes and enjoyed that bit. But I have since done a tandem skydive in Australia. I much prefer doing it that way as well.
Yeah, I don't blame you. So fast forward a few years, you then got married and had a family of your own, didn't you?
I did get married actually just before I met my partner, but that didn't last too long. I met my partner, David, and we had two boys, Liam and Tom.
Did you carry on with your adventures when the boys were young?
I wouldn't say so, not when they were very young. You have 2 children and money's a bit tight, and your focus is on bringing the children up.
I think a lot of women find that you give up what it is that you really want to do because you want to be a good mother and you want to focus on the family. And that's why a lot of women, when they hit their 60s, want to repurpose their life and find that sense of adventure again. But things changed dramatically for you, didn't they, when the boys were younger? What happened?
Liam was 5 and Tom was 3, and David, their dad, caught meningitis, and in 2001 passed away from it. We were all in shock really as well, because bringing up young children, you think meningitis is child's disease, don't you? You know, you just associate. I even had a sign on the boys' bedroom about the signs and symptoms of meningitis to look at for them. I never even thought adults could get it. It was a real shock, and it was hard. It's hard to explain to the boys what happened. The whole family impacted. David had an identical twin brother, Peter, who just felt he'd lost half of himself, really. So, it was very hard.
So you were thrown into being a single mother?
Yeah. Thrown into being a single mother. Just because of our financial situation, I couldn't afford to not work. So I was a full-time working single mother. At the time, I was working for a national housing association called Guinness Trust. The expectation was that as an area manager, I would have to travel across the country. It was hard. My family weren't living, in Manchester. They were all still down sort of South London. And it was really hard to manage job and things. So I ended up leaving my job. I went back to uni and did my teaching qualification. So that was 12 months.
That was an incredibly brave thing to do, though.
It was. Is it brave? But it was the sensible thing to do, because it meant that I could be there more for the boys as they grew up. I knew 5 and 3 that they would have at least 10, 15 years of me needing to be around for them at home rather than having to work away. Going into teaching meant that I could spend some holidays with them, the holidays with them.
And you did do a lot of travelling with the boys, didn't you? You still had your sense of adventure there.
And did, yeah, absolutely.
How important was it for you to do that with the boys, to travel and to see the bits of the world?
Really important, because I thought that to me it was about educating them and about teaching them about other people's lives internationally, around the world sort of thing, and giving them those experiences that I didn't necessarily have as a growing up, but I didn't realise that I hadn't had them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it taught them a fair amount about resilience as well. They've had to do things, I think, that maybe other children haven't had to do. So I'm not a great fan of ironing, for example, and I taught them to iron at 10 years old. So when they're all the way through secondary school, they iron their own shirts for school.
Fantastic.
And everything. I taught them all those kind of independent skills sort of thing. In terms of travelling, it was all about how to book, organise, plan, sort of all those skills. When we went to Australia, we came back and we had 2 nights in Tokyo. And I remember we had 2 cases, 2 young boys. We got off the train and it was like a game of Hungry Hippos, where we came out of the underground station and there were 12 possible exits. Nothing was signposted in English. So the 2 of them had to help me with all the cases, up this exit. Oh, it's not this one, going back down again.
Gosh.
It was like the humidity was awful. And teaching them that things don't always go right, but how can you problem solve? And you can work out to solve a problem,
Sounds like you were thriving like a good little gang, but then a few years later, the rug was pulled from under you again, wasn't it, with another family bereavement?
Yeah. So my sister, my kind of I call middle sister, Wendy, I was very close to, because we were only 14 months apart in age. She'd stayed living and working at home, and she hadn't had any children, but she'd met her husband a slightly older age, about around 40, and they got married and they had an apartment out in Spain. He died suddenly of a heart attack at 47. They were out in Spain at the apartment at the time. I flew out with one of his friends and helped her through that, sorting out repatriating his body and things. And then She never really got over that, and she took redundancy from her job back in England and spent more time out in her apartment in Spain. She'd always drunk quite a lot, but she started drinking quite heavily and died about 2015 of liver failure. She was 48.
Such a young age. I mean, this must show you the fragility of life and make you really want to embrace every moment of getting older.
Absolutely. I think that had been something that losing David had done. He was 43. Then Steve, my brother-in-law, a few years later, 47, and then my sister at 48. The three of them didn't even reach 50.
No.
We don't know what's around the corner at all. We don't. The first trip I took the boys on to California, we hired a car and we drove down Highway 1, and I played the Red Hot Chili Peppers quite a lot. And there's a line in one of their songs that says, "Life is not a dress rehearsal." And I thought, yeah.
Oh, I love Red Hot Chili Peppers. Good choice. Good choice. I can imagine that going along the road, driving along with the boys, the atmosphere, singing away.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just going to interrupt for a moment to shamelessly plug my book, Retirement Rebel. It's published by Vertebrate Publishers, and it's my honest account of feeling broken in my 50s and finding my happy place in my mid-60s. I got rid of my home and possessions and hit the road in my motorhome for a roller coaster ride along life's adventures. I want it to help younger women not to fear aging and older women to grab life and run with it. You can purchase a copy in most bookstores and on Amazon. Right, now back to the conversation. All this bereavements and the knocks and kicks that you've had in life have actually given you fire in the belly, haven't it, to just do all sorts of things. You've run marathons. Talk me through, when did you first decide to do a marathon? Because I did one when I was 53 and one when I was 55, and I know it was no mean feat.
Yeah. I picked up running after David died. Part of my kind of processing it and coping with it, I started running short distances at first, but it was just getting out there in the fresh air.
Was that for your mental health as well?
That was for my mental health, yeah, at the time. I'd had to take quite a few months off work because I was struggling. I was struggling actually physically to deal with it. I was coming down with all sorts of throat infections and everything, and that was just the reaction to the stress, the trauma. So I started running then. And then Pete and I, David's twin, decided to do some fundraising for meningitis research. And we entered the Great North Run. So that was in the September after he died in the January. So it was about 9 months. So we did the training, we did that, we raised a fair amount of money. And then obviously life just got in the way a little bit with the boys and work and things. And they'd started running when they were a little bit older, probably 2013, doing sort of 10Ks. The Manchester 10K is a brilliant run to do. And then I thought, I really want to have that experience of doing a marathon. I didn't particularly want to run 26 miles.
No, I know the feeling.
I just wanted that whole experience. You watch it on telly and you just think, I want to be there. I don't want to be there to watch. I want to be there to actually run and sort of experience that all. Obviously, London's my birth city sort of thing. So if there was going to be a marathon, it was going to be London. I thought, while I'm working, I can't do the fundraising. I'd applied to the ballot several years and never got in. So I thought, I'm only going to do it through a charity place. But I thought, I can't do the fundraising and do the training that's needed to do it. So I waited till I retired. I took early retirement at 55 and I did the fundraising. I did a lot of the training and I had a place 2020 London Marathon. And 3 weeks before, COVID. It was cancelled. Yeah. I was like, I can't believe this. Anyway, so later that year, they did it as a virtual marathon. I don't know if you remember, they did it as a virtual marathon. I did do that because you ran it round where you live, basically. And you could, as long as you did 26 miles within 24 hours, then you completed the virtual marathon. So basically I did.
But that must have been hard as well, because I know, having run a couple of marathons, it's the crowd that gets you round. I mean,
Yes.
I haven't got a marathon runner's body at all. It was my mind and the crowd got me round an awful lot. So it must have been very hard to do it
Yeah.
on your own.
I was lucky. I didn't do it on my own as such. I had a friend who ran, we set off early in the morning, 8 o'clock, and did the first 13 miles, me and it's hilly around here, Yorkshire. It's hilly. Everywhere you run around here, you come across a hill. So we did the 13 miles. I then had a break for an hour or so, had a full English breakfast.
Like you do.
and then went out with another group of friends and did 7 miles and did the final 6 miles with a different group of friends. And they were amazing.
Did you actually get to do the marathon in London though?
Yes. So then you could defer your entry. I deferred it for a couple of years, actually, till 2022, because I wanted to run it in April. I didn't want to run it in October. But as it turned out, they were still doing it in October in 2022. And I did it then. And that was amazing.
Mm.
It's overwhelming. I get emotional just thinking about it now. But
that feeling of crossing that finish line is incredible, isn't it?
Utter relief and achievement that you've done that.
And empowerment, isn't it? It shows what our minds help us do in life.
Yeah. Well, 3 weeks before, I got Achilles tendonitis. I'd done an injury to my Achilles. And I spent the previous sort of 2.5 weeks having ultrasound therapy, massage on it, all sorts of physio treatment on it. And I just said to the physio, just get me to that start line. If you get me to the start line, I'll walk it, I'll whatever. As it turned out, the Achilles was absolutely fine during the day. Other parts of me really hurt. But that was okay. It took me 7 hours.
You did it though. You did it. You're a marathoner, and there's not that many in the world who are marathoners.
I did it, exactly. And Mo Farah, I think, did it that year. And I just said, I've just run the same distance as Mo Farah.
How old were you when you did it?
59.
That's incredible, approaching 60. This is what I'm trying to show with this podcast, is that a lot of people seem to assume when you get to your mid-50s, when you're approaching 60, you're slowing down. And I say, when you retire, you refire. We're not retiring, we're refiring. And you're a fabulous example of that, which is why I so wanted to talk to you. And one of the other things that you do that I love, because I'm a great advocate of this, is solo female travel. You go off, you have your trips on your own. How long have you been doing that? And how important is it to you to go out there and have your me time and your solo trips?
It's really important for me to get out there. I just think you've got such a limited time on this earth, and there's so many places to see and so many different things to experience that, you can become quite cocooned, can't you, in your little world?
It is easy to go to that dark place. And I found it's almost like you're a copy of me in the sense that running the marathons and doing the traveling, it opens your mind and heart and makes you see the world differently.
Absolutely. So, I booked myself on my first solo trip to Sri Lanka in 2015, I think it was. And it was mainly because the boys had grown older and they just weren't interested in going away at that point. They just wanted to spend their holidays with their friends. They were old enough to be left on their own. So, I booked 3 weeks to Sri Lanka.
Were you nervous?
I was nervous. I wasn't nervous about going to Sri Lanka. I was nervous about spending 3 weeks with a group of people that I'd not met and thinking, will I get on with them? I booked a single room, so paid the single supplement because that was my first trip. And since then, I have not paid the single supplement and gone on similar holidays. And you end up rooming with people. I think it was 2 years after that, I went to Southeast Asia, roomed with this amazing young girl. She was 28 at the time. She was a teacher from London. So we had a lot in common. But also, I felt she was young enough to be my daughter, and I loved that mixing of generations.
Yeah, that is one of the things that I absolutely advocate, is this intergenerational discussion. Because when I went around the world when I was 49, I took a gap year from work, I travelled a lot like you with people in their 20s and 30s. And it was the first time I just felt ageless and fearless.
No.
They didn't give a monkey's how old I was because I was doing the adventure. And that's, again, so important because we categorise ourselves as if you do this in your 30s, you do this in your 40s, you do this in your 50s and 60s. And it's not like that. We're all just wanting to live the best lives we can.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You're all experiencing the same thing at the same time, aren't you?
Yeah. But when you mention single supplement there, that is one of my bugbears. I get so angry that it's almost like you're penalised for being on your own.
I know.
And often not through choice.
Yes. Since then, that's the only time I paid that single supplement. That was because that was my first trip, and I just thought, take it kind of step gently. You've always got then your room to go away to if you're not getting on with. But I rarely spent time in the room. So,
what advice would you give to younger women about aging and travel and just interacting with older people? What would you say to them?
I would say seize the day, because you don't know what's around the corner. And because also I think that it enlightens you. It opens up your mind. I think you become more tolerant, you become more understanding, more kinder person, a better person for that. You make yourself more interesting person, I think, as well, because you've got a lot of things to talk about. It makes you appreciate what you've got and maybe what others haven't.
I also felt that I ended up talking to people from all walks of life that maybe I wouldn't necessarily have stopped and had the time of day with when I was really busy working, travelling on my own.
Yes, absolutely. The other thing is I've made so many friends from other countries that when I went to Australia a couple of years ago, I stayed with a friend that I'd met in Cuba. She lives in Brisbane. I then went to the Barossa Valley, just north of Adelaide, and stayed with another friend that I'd met there. And then her and her daughter came over to the UK after that and stayed with me in Manchester, showed them the highlights of the Northwest.
But also, when you reached 60, you didn't stop, did you? You celebrated your birthday in style, which is, I love this.
Yes. For months before that, I thought, I'm 60. I need to do something to mark the occasion.
Were you dreading it or looking forward to it?
I wasn't dreading it. But what I did want was the typical party. I'd had a party when I was 50 and Liam, my eldest, was 18 2 days before me. So we had a joint 18th and 50th, which was fab because there were young people there, there were old people there, and it was great. And obviously our families and things. And I did enjoy that. But I didn't want to repeat that and to be the focus. I don't like being the centre of attention in that sense. So I thought, what can I do for my 60th that's a little bit different than the typical birthday celebrations? Well, I wanted to go to Nepal and Bhutan, but it's quite difficult and very expensive to get into Bhutan. So I looked at Nepal and I thought, it'd be nice to do a bit of walking over there. I avoided the Everest Base Camp trip.
It's crowded now.
It's so busy now. Pictures of people queuing and things. And it's just, I thought, no, I want the peace and quiet but to be in the mountains. So I did the Annapurna Circuit trek, which I think was about 12 days of walking. It's a circular thing, so.
It's incredible, isn't it? I did it in the early 80s. It is absolutely breathtakingly beautiful.
Yes, yeah. And it was reasonably quiet. I wouldn't say there were other people obviously doing the treks. Our group was a nice small group, I think 6, 7 of us, plus our porters and our guides. Absolutely thoroughly loved it. It was tough. It was as physically challenging as doing the marathon.
Well, you've got the altitude as well, haven't you? It's walking in that kind of high altitude.
Yeah, I wasn't too affected by the altitude. I'd walked the Inca Trail in 2017 in Peru, and the heights were similar to that. I knew that I wasn't somebody who's naturally affected by the altitude, but it's stone steps, a lot of things. So you're up and down on the steps. I was actually taught to walk differently than I'd been walking. I think your tendency is to go out a bit too fast.
Yes.
And then keep stopping. So my guide said, no, just do 1, 2, want to, so I was like, I've been taught to walk again.
No, but my brother, I couldn't do hills for years when I was out walking, and when I did the Annapurna Trek and various things. And it was when we did the 3 Yorkshire Peaks when I was 59. We did them in a day, and I was really struggling, and he'd been in the army, and he was sort of, lean in and take smaller steps when you're going up hills. It was a game changer for me. If you don't know these little things, you've got no idea at all. Far from slowing down in your 60s, you really are example of what I say, when we retire, we refire. You really are refiring, aren't you? You've still got other plans of things to do. What are you heading for next?
I did the 3 weeks on the Portuguese coastal Camino. I was already going over to Porto with my wine tasting group.
Gosh, you sound like you're just having the best life ever.
Yes, we have a wine tasting group called Plongers who meet every month, and a couple of years ago we decided to save up and we went abroad and did some wine tasting in Porto. So I was already in Porto there. They obviously then went home after 5 days, and I had booked to do the Portuguese Camino. So that's walking from Porto up to Santiago de Compostela in Spain.
And what was that like? Do you spend time reflecting on life and thinking deeply, like a lot of my friends say they did?
Yes, it's a very sort of meditational type of walk. It's flat. There's no hills. It's not like the Himalayas at all. It's flat walking, but it's obviously longer distances over the day, and it gives you so much time to think and reflect on things. Really, yeah.
Do you ever think that you're a role model for younger women? Do you ever realize that all the things that you're doing and the way that you're living your life, and you're a good example for younger women to break the stereotype of what society still keeps saying that we look like and we do and we think when we're in our 60s?
I don't do those things to do that, but I've been told that, you're inspirational. I wish I could do what you're doing. I do try and encourage people and say, just go out and do it. If you want to do something, just go out and do it. I've been for a couple of cold water, wild water dips as well this year. That's again something that I'd been wanting to do for a while, and I thought,
And how did you feel after that?
Absolutely loved it. I mean, I wish I could get my act together, get out more and do it. But I shall be going this Saturday. I'm going up to Settle and going to go in the river there as well. I hope that I inspire my children. That's primarily to get out and make the most. And in fact, my youngest son is just in the middle of planning going travelling with his girlfriend next year. They're going for 100 days. I don't know why they've chosen 100 days, but they've decided 100 days, and they've got 10 countries that they're going to start off in New Zealand and work their way through Southeast Asia to China.
It must make you feel good knowing that you've inspired them and that they're sort of following in your footsteps. But you, as a woman in your 60s, how do you feel, and how do you feel about the prospect of aging, and how do you feel society is with older women?
I think when I was younger, aging did used to put fear in me. I was like, oh no, I don't want to get old, because old means that you're getting nearer to dying. But I think now that it doesn't terrify me in that way. It just means that I'm privileged. I feel privileged, because they do say life is a privilege that's denied to a few. It's just my privilege to reach these kind of milestones. But I think it's the quality of life as well. I feel privileged and lucky that I am healthy. And because people around me, loved ones, haven't had that privilege, I feel that I need to make the most of life for them, a bit of a legacy for them, sort of thing. Yeah.
What do you think David would make of what you're doing now in your 60s?
I think he'll think I'm mad. Yes. I think he'd be proud of me. I do think he'd be proud of me. My sons are proud of me. They don't tell me that often. They're men. They don't easily say things, but apart from when they send you a Mother's Day card and they write it down, they can't say it, but they write it down, which is nice. I think he'd also be saying, okay, you calm down a bit now, sort of thing. Maybe stop jumping out of planes and whitewater rafting down the Zambezi and all the other mad things I've done. But I feel like I've done a lot of the physical kind of challenges, sort of thing. I still want to do that long zip line that's in Wales.
Oh, I want to do that. We should do it together.
Yes. Let's.
We'll have a chat.
Yeah. But I think I've done the marathon, I've done walking in the Himalayas. So it's more the kind of other experiences.
You were on Countdown, weren't you, recently?
Yes.
Was
in March. Yes.
Well done. Well, that's not physical. That's the mental challenge, isn't it?
I know. And
how was that?
That was brilliant. It was a really good experience. I didn't win, but I didn't disgrace myself either. So I was really pleased. And I just enjoyed the whole experience and meeting Colin. He was what a lovely guy he is.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah, it was brilliant.
Now, I call myself the retirement rebel, and you have obviously got a rebellious streak in you, which I absolutely love. And I ask all my guests this question, and I'm sure you'll have lots of things to choose from, but I just say, when was the last time that you were rebellious or felt rebellious?
I think it's got to be in the Camino when I did that in May, because although people do it and they do it in a group of people, I decided I wanted to do it on my own. I didn't do the traditional carrying everything on your back and staying in hostels. I knew that to complete it, I would have to have a good night's sleep. So I had a company that transported my bag, and I had a room in small hotels and bed and breakfasts. But just to plan that and walk that, I felt that I was doing something that people wouldn't normally do. And that to me, that's about being a rebel sort of thing. And people said, you're doing it on your own. You're walking all that way on your own. Other people do it. I'm not saying that they don't, but I don't know anyone who's done that in my kind of circle of friends. I'd say that was probably the last time, most recently.
One of the things I get asked a lot is, do I get lonely? And you've done an awful lot of solo traveling, like I have, all around the world. And I'm interested to know, do you get lonely?
Very rarely. I'm not saying never, but yeah, very rarely. Somebody asked me the other day about whether they thought I was an extrovert or an introvert, and I think I'm probably more of an introvert. I'm happy in my own company. I'm at peace with my own company, sort of thing. I live on my own now. My youngest has moved out a few weeks ago. And yeah, I can entertain myself. I recently hired a camper van because I am thinking about buying a camper van.
Yay!
I want to try before I buy. So I hired a camper van and I went up for 3 nights in the Lake District.
That's a good idea.
Oh, it was great. It was a lovely van, and really enjoyed it. And I went on this site for the Lake District, and there was a kind of little mini rally of women, older women on their own in the camper vans. And I got talking to them when I was walking up one of the nearest mountains. And she was telling me about this. It's like a Facebook group of women. And I said, what's the name of things? I'm really interested in journey. She said, it's for older women. I said, I'm 60. She said, it's for 65 and above. So I'm too young to join their Facebook group. I was gutted, but they were all there camping on their own. Some of them had dogs with them, and I think they meet up twice a year at different campsites. And
there's definitely a growing tribe of women, and predominantly older women, who are taking to van life for their adventures, or some of them full time, because that sense of freedom, like I've done. I've been in Dora the Explorer now for 5 years, and I've never looked back. I've never been happier. But also this platform that I've got is letting people listen to my story and your story and other people's stories, saying we're out there, we're camping, we're traveling, we're living, we're refiring, and we want to be an inspiration to you. And I have to thank you, Jane, so much for joining me on the podcast. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, and I could talk to you for hours more, but unfortunately we have to come to an end. But thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for being a rebel, and you're definitely in my retirement rebel tribe. Lovely talking to you.
Oh, thank you.
I enjoyed talking with Jane Ashley. She's certainly not slowing down as she's aging. She's embracing getting old. What I take away, though, from our conversation is we should all embrace our rebellious spirits and live an adventurous life at any age. We shouldn't let societal expectations define our worth or limit our potential. And I also realise that tragedy can be a catalyst for personal growth and a renewed zest for life. Next week, I'll be speaking with the Irish comedy writing accountant Valerie Troy. She told me how she's really hitting the mark with the women in their 50s and 60s and beyond with her comedy about reinvention as you age, and how she's helping to get more comedy out there for older women. I hope you enjoy it as much as I loved chatting with her. Thank you so much for joining me on today's Retirement Rebel Life After 60. I'm truly grateful for your time and your willingness to embark on this journey with me. If today's conversation sparked something within you, or if you've your own rebel story to share, I'd love to hear from you. Please reach out through our social media channels or email, and let's keep the conversation going. Email us on podcast@retirementrebel.co.uk. And remember, if you found value in our time together today, consider sharing this episode with a friend who might also enjoy and benefit from our Retirement Rebel community. Spreading the word helps us grow and continue to challenge the narrative around life after 60. All of our details can be found on retirementrebel.co.uk. Retirement Rebel Life After 60 is written and hosted by me, Siobhan Daniels, and produced by the incredibly talented Matt Cheney. Join me again next week for another episode. Until then, keep embracing your inner rebel and living life to the fullest. Bye for now.